What is up, dudes and lady dudes? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, I wanted to make a little discussion video talking about something that's always kind of like, I don't know, for the last couple months kind of irked me in the side of my brain. When I looked at some of these OCG tournaments that, are constantly going on, I saw a certain deck that I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I realized there's like one card we're actually missing from this deck in the TCG, and it's not that important in my opinion as far as like making the deck playable or not in the TCG. But for some reason, this deck like constantly is getting like rogue tops. Not getting like a ton of tops, but it feels like almost every tournament you're like, oh, a Code Talker topped. Oh, two Code Talkers topped. Like, weird. And so it just brought me to this, like, I don't know, wanting to make this video talking about this deck and why nobody plays it in the TCG when this deck can actually fairly consistently top in the OCG. So today we're going to be going through this deck list, at least for this guy, and we're going to be just talking about a lot of the points here and just mentioning interactions, what the deck does, and all that stuff. Just giving it a general overview and then just talking about why it's not played and stuff like that. Keep in mind, this was a 194-man tournament, and this guy made top 4. So he not only made it through Swiss, but then won 2 rounds in top 16 to then make it to top 4, which is very respectable. I mean, you got to put some respect on that. And this is also from December 29th, so it is about a month old, so their format has changed a little bit, so keep that in mind as well. But still, yeah, let's just get into it. All right. So starting off here, you have a lot of just generic good Cybers cards, right? So you have Gachiri at Ignister. This card just like targets a face-up Cybers on your field, negates its effects, then summons itself, and then I believe it does give protection to a monster that it's, I think, linked into, which is fine, but main thing is keep in mind its attribute. Keep in mind all these monsters' attributes as we go through it, which will come up a little later. You also have Gadget, Cybers Gadget. This card's pretty cool. On normal summon, it'll revive a level 2 or lower Cybers monster, and then when it's sent from field to grave, you get a token as well. So even if you're not reviving something, it's still a 1-card link too, which is still pretty good. Then you have 3 Lady Debug. This is a 1-card combo. Searches like everything in your deck. It's a really good card. Then 1 Math Mech, I believe this is Addition, so he pretty much just summons himself, then buffs a monster, and then locks you into Cybers. Not a big deal. Our whole deck is Cybers, but he's also Fire, which does come up a little bit. Then we have the actual like Code Talker main deck monsters. They're not actually called Code Talker monsters, but this I believe is Code Generator. This guy here, he's really good. He lets you all the code. Well, I guess you have microcode here. Let's cover these at the same time. All of the code main deck monsters all allow you to use them as link material from hand if you're going into a Code Talker link monster. So they do that, and then they get an additional effect if they're used for link summon for a Code Talker monster. Code Generator will let you Foolish Burial a level or a 1200 attack or less Cybers monster from deck. Okay. While Microcoder will just straight up search you a Signet Spell or Trap. So that could be either your Signet Codec or your Signet Conflict, or if you also play Signet Mining, you could search that as well. Kind of surprised it's not in here, but I guess we'll get to that later. Yeah, which is really cool. Also, if they're used as material on the field instead of on the hand, they can do something different if you want. Code Generator can just like search the card you would dump instead, and Microcoder could actually just add any level 4 Cybers monster. Okay, not half bad, could come up for sure. And then we have Dotscaper being the last card here. Kind of interested in why they're playing 2. It's a once per duel effects on him, so you can't just like dump him once and then dump him on the following turn to get his effect again. He's just once per duel, so kind of weird there, but okay, I'd definitely play 1 Dotscaper, because when it's sent, it comes back. If you can banish it, it comes back, and it's pretty good. Then obviously Hand Traps. This isn't really too important. I mean, I guess we don't have Max C, so you could just supplement in more Ghost Spells or Skullmeister or whatever else you might want to play. Fine. Then we get to the spells, right? So we're going to get to Skynet Codec here. This is one of the pillar cards of this deck. One of the very, very important cards here. This card pretty much says, if you link into a Code Talker monster while this card's on the field, you can search for a Cybers monster with the same attribute. But you won't be able to search for that attribute again. And I think it has like another restriction. This card's only once per chain or something. It has like a couple of weird little restrictions. I think it locks you into Cybers probably. But it's nothing crazy because it's not once per turn, which makes it crazy. The restrictions aren't crazy. The card itself is crazy because you could literally make a Code Talker inverted, which is dark, or a Code Talker, or a Code Talker inverted, which are light and dark. So there you go. Search a dark, search a light, whichever you want. Search your microcoder. Then you link them up into transcode, and then transcode can get you an Earth. So that's why I get Chiriatic Nisters in here, Code Generators Earth, Dotscapers Earth. You have a couple different things you can get there, which is really, really good. You also have other utility with like the Decode Talker Heat Soul. So there's a lot you can do there, and you just get two, maybe even 3 searches in a turn. It's a little bit crazy. So this card's insane. Definitely a huge card for the deck. Then 2 Desires. Most of your stuff is just 3 ofs. You do have a couple searchables, so like Codec and Conflict are in here. So those are like the main things that I'd be like, I don't want to hit those. But I don't know. It's a +1, so what are you going to do? You also have Monster Reborn, just good extender, Book of Moon, defensive card. And then you play some Solemns, which is really interesting because this seems to be the general route people tend to go in the OCG for this deck, which is like you kind of make like a little sticky board, and then you like back it up with stuff like Solemns, right? So Judgment's going to be one just blanket no to any one like bomb card that might break your board, and then the rest of your board is too sticky for your opponent to actually break through all the way, and you usually end with cards back in your hand as well, so you're ready to go for the following turn as well. And then obviously you have Silent Conflict. This card's insane. This is a counter trap that's searchable off of Coder, and it pretty much just says negate any card or effect while you control a Code Talker, banish the card you negate, and then your opponent can't activate cards or effects, I believe, until the end of the next turn. So it's almost like Called by the Grave like that. So if you hit like a very crucial card, I mean, it's almost like something like Miscellaneous Source. You could like negate a Miscellaneous Source, and they wouldn't even be able to activate him for a whole nother like 2 turns, which is pretty crazy. So this card's insane. I wouldn't even be surprised if some people want to play 2 of this. Then you have Dynamiscus, another generic, defensive card. Crackdown disrupts your opponent while giving you more link fodder, which is cool. And then obviously the Imperial Order, because we barely play any traps, does turn off your codec, but if you've probably already gotten 2 to 3 searches on your turn 1 anyway off of codec, so it's not that important overall. Which takes us to the extra deck. A bunch of link 1s, so Spider, Garibo, Almirage, and Balinks are all there for their own purposes, right? Balinks just clearing a Cybers. Lingaribo is actually really nice to help you play into back row decks for sure, which is really nice. And then these 2 just clearing monsters off the field when you need them, like your blah 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 blah. This guy, what's his name? Cybers Gadget, Jesus. And then Link Spider's there for the Cybers Gadget token, I believe. Then you have 2 Splash Mage. This card just revives a Cybers monster, gives you fodder to go up into transcode. It's really nice. 1 Code Talker, just regular Code Talker. He's pretty good. I mean, he doesn't really do much. He does buff himself a little bit, so he can be a beater, and he gives himself slight protection effects, but nothing crazy. Then you have Code Talker Inverted. This card actually allows you to special summon any Cybers monster from your hand to a zone he points to, so that can come up as an extender. But also it's a different attribute, Code Talker, so it can help you link up or get extra searches with Codec. 1 Update Jammer, because you can do the crazy Update Jammer Transcode Talker plays to just like push for a ton of damage. Speaking of which, Transcode is insane. This is like the best card in the extra deck. I mean, you could even revive an access code. Oh, actually, no, maybe you can't. I think it's actually only link 3 or lowers. Yeah. Okay, so you can't reborn the access code. That's my fault. But you can reborn like anything else. You could just like reborn a Code Talker, reborn an Inverted, reborn an Update Jammer. I mean, Update Jammer just means you have like double attacks with him, and that's like an OTK. It's crazy. Then you have Decode Talker Heat Soul. This is literally the only card that's like of consequence that we actually don't have in the TCG, and it's really not that important. Like, it's a cool card, and it does give you the search for like the Mathmech edition, but other than that, it doesn't really do much. He is cool though. Because I think he gains 500 for every monster he points to, just like Decode. But he also has an effect where, as a quick effect, once per turn you can pay 1,000 to draw a card. Then, if your life points are 2,000 or less, you can actually like banish him to then summon another Link 3 or lower like Cybers monster from the extra deck. And he just like tags out for it, which is actually kind of funny, kind of a weird effect, but it can let you dodge certain things, play around certain things while drawing a card. But worst case scenario, he's literally like, pay 1,000, draw a card, pay 1,000, draw a card, your turn and your opponent's. Still pretty good, and he's fire, so he gets you like a weird little search for your Mathmech edition as well, which is kind of cool. Then you have the Shooting Code Talker. Not entirely sure why this is here. I guess because you could revive, you could like, I don't know, get it engraved, revive it off transcode, and then that could be pretty good, right? Because he gets like double attacks, and you draw a card for every monster he destroys. I don't know if I'm feeling this card in this deck. It definitely feels like a cuttable card. And then you have the access codes, obviously. I would say this is the only real barrier of entry to this deck, is that you absolutely, unquestionably need one access code, and it's probably correct to play two, because you're probably just going to be going into this super often, and if your opponent can out it or does have something to defend against it, you're going to want the second one. But I guess if you wanted to be slightly more budget with it, you could play something, I think, like Mech Knight Avermax, Mech Knight Crusadia Avermax instead of the second one. But you absolutely, unquestionably need one, and that's definitely a budget restriction there, because the deck just doesn't kill as easily as it could. It has to be Cybers if you're going to have a card that's going to be like your OTK card, slash like just board breaker. And you just play a bunch of extenders, so even just playing into a board, your opponent may have disruptions, but you can just play through them and then get the access code. You're just like, okay, I made it, pop 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 pop, because you're gonna put like multiple different attributes in grave, and then you go to town, right? So it's kind of weird, but obviously it's tough there budget wise. But that's pretty much it for all the Code Talker cards here. It's a really, really cool deck. I'm extremely surprised nobody really has seemed to try to go in on this deck. I'm definitely looking forward to building it in the future. I'm actually trying to pick up the cards right now, so that I can at least show you guys a build for the TCG, or at least what I would go for. But I'm really excited. And also one other thing that I wanted to throw out there to keep in mind is there's a ton of other Cybers cards that could go in this deck. We're just not playing them because like you don't need them necessarily, but I definitely think there are some things. There's another code monster for the main deck. It's Radiator, and when he's like, he can be used from hand, obviously for Code Talker links. But when he's used as material, he can like negate a monster on your opponent's field, and if you used him as a material on the field, he can actually negate 2 monsters. So that actually allows you to play into boards pretty well, just by like baiting at a negate right there by negating something. And that's pretty cool. You also have Signet Mining. Signet Mining's not in this deck at all, not even as a 1-up to search off of Coder if you wanted it. Or even as a 3-up just to say, oh, well, that's 3 more copies of my 1-card combo Lady Debug, or Cybers Gadget, or Microcoder, or anything. So I'm very surprised that's not in here as well. There are main deck boss monsters like Degrade Buster. It's not the most insane card in the world, but it is a nice like follow-up boss monster that I believe can be searched off Codec if you made like Heat Soul. Now I know we don't have Heat Soul yet, but you know, that's just an example of another cool card that could be something, you know, worth talking about. But that's going to do it for me here today, guys. I just wanted to show you this deck. I just think it's a really, really fun, awesome deck. And I don't know, hopefully this inspires a couple more people to go out and actually try to build it. I know I am, and I'll bring you a deck profile hopefully soon once I get the cards. But mail has been jank as hell, man. It's been killing me. But yeah. Thank you so much for watching, guys. As always, let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think about Code Talkers? Like, 1, what do you think like is the reason that people aren't playing it here? And I guess 2 is, do you think it can perform? And what would you do different from this list if it would? Like, what idea would you have as far as building the deck that you try and like I don't know, go about with that. So I'm going to leave it off there, though. Thank you so much for watching. As always, subscribe if you haven't and you want to see more discussion videos like this one in the future. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.